everyone, and welcome to Writing Easy, the podcast that takes the act of writing, which can sometimes be not easy, and tries to make it less not easy. I'm one of your hosts, Mary Mascari.
And I'm your other host, Melissa Long.
Happy New Year.
Happy 2022.
2022. 2022. Have you written 2021 and then crossed it out and written 2022?
Only once.
Yet?
Only once.
I mean, they're like on your checks, like, I don't write checks.
Right.
Very rarely. So far not too bad.
Yeah.
But 2021 was a blur. Just a complete, like, wait, what? Ooh,
exactly.
Yeah.
Which is why I feel like it's easy to, like, forget about writing 21.
It's true. I keep kind of going 2020. I'm like, wait, no.
Yeah.
It was, because we lost 2020, that I feel like last year was 2020. And so now, like, I'm behind a year, I think is what it was. I don't think it was that 2021 was bad. It was just that 2020 was, and so I think that's where I'm off.
Yeah.
Let's go with that.
Okay.
But 2021 was not a complete loss. It was actually a lot of things. And we thought it would be a good idea to kind of look back, reflect, and kind of talk about some of the things that we've learned, some of the things that we've experienced as writers over the last year.
Yeah. I feel like this is an activity that I do often at the end of the year, is to, like, reflect over. Usually it's like a list of accomplishments, and I'm like, look how many things I wrote, and look how many words I wrote, look how many queries I sent out, and all of these things that I didn't maybe plan for in my goal setting, but that happened as a way to feel good about, like, how I spent my time. And this year was, like, different because there was, like, not a lot of completed things, I will be honest. And I think one of the big lessons that I had was I had to pull away from these, like, really specific SMART goals. I am no longer a fan of SMART goals. I'm not a fan of, like, qualifying my or maybe quantifying my output and, like, having to hit certain metrics.
Yeah.
Because it was just too much pressure, and it didn't allow me to have grace or forgiveness. It would make me feel really judgmental and critical of myself if I wasn't hitting the milestones.
Yeah.
And it didn't allow for flexibility if something else came up that actually was really good, but I hadn't planned for.
I remember a while ago we had talked about having a beacon, something that you have principles, you have high level goals, you have ideas of what you want to get, a direction you want to go. And I think for something as large as a writing career, that's probably more useful than to say, in March I will do this, in April I will do this. I mean, sometimes for some things you have to do that, like particularly the more businessy things. When you've got other people you're relying on, when you have time, but when for the more creative-y stuff, I think that, like you said, that just adds more pressure, and there's already so much damn pressure on yourself just to write in the first place. I think that making it worse is not a good idea.
Yeah. And even the businessy things, like, I like the business side of it, but also so many of my friends are in this hustle and grind mode that it looks nice on paper, but it's hard to sustain. And that's what I've seen. And, like, they have been facing burnout or just been really agitated and frustrated because they have to deprioritize other things. And it's like, oh, that's because you're releasing, like, 6 books in a year.
Yeah.
Like, and if that's the number they need to be, like, financially sustainable, like, is writing as a career sustainable, right? Like, it starts to get to this point where, like, we're asking and demanding so much of ourselves, and it, like, impacts our health and our relationships and our outlook and all of the other stuff.
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of keep that in mind, because at the end of the day, at the end of your life, it doesn't matter, right? Like, that you have to figure out what's really important to you. This isn't a competition, this isn't a race. Remember back in the 80s, back when I was a kid in the 80s, there was a little there's a button or something that people would have, or t-shirt things that says, "He who dies with the most toys wins." And I believe it was meant ironically, but I certainly take it ironically. Like, yeah, you don't win if you die with the most toys. So, I think that's a really good activity to reprioritize and make sure that you have your principles, you have your things, your main things that are important, and making sure that you're acting in accordance with those and that you're supporting those things most. And
Right.
that's really all you can do.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to segue into, so one of the things that I did this year, a big change I made, is I uh, basically kind of switched my focus to writing short stories. I had been fighting with writing mysteries for a year and a half, 2 years, a
Mm-hmm.
while. Um, and because I was sure I could do that. Like, this is it. This is going to be a great way in. I know I can do this. This seems so easy and fun, and like there's a lot of demand for it. And I can get published. I can reach my goals um, from a publishing perspective. If I just switch genres to mystery, and I love mysteries, and I don't know why I just couldn't do it. I was just having such a hard time. Maybe later, when I'm more experienced again, I'll be able to try it again. It's a different kind of writing. You're writing to like reveal the backstory instead of going forward a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of challenges to it, and I got all twisty and I got nowhere. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do short stories, and I really like that a lot. I like the short story market a lot more. Um, it's not doesn't pay anything, and it doesn't. I'm not going to be super rich and famous from it, but whatever. I like writing short stories. I think it's more fun, and I'm having a real good time with it. So I think that change is the biggest change that I made with my writing career this year, and I think it was a really good decision. That's one big change I made.
That's huge. And I do think there's a lesson in there too around like what you like to consume is not always what you end up creating. Like there are a
Yeah,
lot of types of genres that I love reading, and every time I try to write it, I just can't. It doesn't fit my voice and my tone or the way that I think and create stories, and so it always feels like this uphill slog, and it never quite turns out as polished or as nice as I would want it to be because I'm
yeah,
comparing it to the stuff that I really love.
yeah,
And that's okay. I think it's okay. It's actually maybe even
yeah.
healthier to like love a genre or love a type of book or a medium, but not have to feel pressure to create in it.
Absolutely. I mean that we do that all the time, right? I listen to all kinds of music. I don't play it,
Yeah.
right? I look at all kinds of art. I don't make that kind of art. I like we all have our own things, so there's nothing wrong with that. And to say that because really you have to. This has to be fun. It has to. It's really gotta.
Hmm.
Because there's no other reason to do it. If you want to be rich, there's so many easier ways to do that. Um, so yeah, like I wasn't having fun with it. I was getting all worked up. I think the the sort of relationship with the reader that you have when you're writing a mystery, because you're taking them through the journey, but you're also kind of trying to trick them, right? There's a little adversarial thing that just got in my head, and I couldn't do it. So
Yeah.
I said, yeah, forget it. I'm gonna write some short stories, and I've been going like crazy. I've been having a lot of fun. And the other great thing I learned, which is my other one of my other big lessons,
Hmm.
is it's okay to have more than one project. So what I've been doing is I've been bouncing between the short stories. Let's work on this one today. Oh, I'm stuck on this one. Okay, I'm gonna walk over on this one. We're on this one. Oh, this one's done. I'm going back to old ones, revising, do. And so it's really nice to be able to bounce around. Go where I'm feeling it, and it's a lot more fun, rather than feeling like, no, you must have this. You must continue working on this, even though it is hard. It's like, I'm gonna go over here now. We just gotta play.
Yeah. And that's where I think for me, not having that fixed goal of like, oh, I have to write this many stories or I have to do
Yeah,
X, I have to finish this project. And if I don't, I'm not going to hit this goal. But if it's not working or I need a break, then I need a break, right? It's helpful
yeah,
to be able to move to a different kind of thing. And that's part of a creative process, right? Like it's
absolutely.
not supposed to be rigid and structured. You're supposed to have that free form of like following the muse and inspiration.
Yeah, because like if you want to do a thing that's really structured uh and regimented, again, so many other fields where you can do that, and it would be much easier to you can get paid lots of money for it. Like there's a lot of places where you can do that.
Yeah.
Writing is not that place.
Yeah.
So we got to take it easy on ourselves a little bit more. I think is what we've learned, and I think the world's kind of learned that a lot. We've all kind of gone through a lot of things, and I think if you say to everyone, like, hey, I need a little mental health break. Oh well, yeah, of course. Like we all understand that lesson we've all learned.
Right. And that leads into one of my learnings, which was inspired by a quote from Tom Hanks. And I don't think it was this year. I think I was watching a like old video, but he did this actors round table, and they were like, it was probably Variety or something like that. If I find the clip, I'll drop it in the description. But there were like 6 or 7 other like really established actors, and they were all talking about success and challenges. And his advice to them was like, the thing that he tells himself is, this too shall pass. Like he just that line, this too shall pass. And he's like, it works in every single context, because when you're going through a low and a rough patch, you just remind yourself like, this is not permanent. We are not permanently fixed to this state and time and place and feeling and emotion. And then on the flip side, he's like, when I'm riding a high and everybody's paying attention to me and everybody's celebrating and excited about the work that I'm doing, I remind myself that this too will pass, that it is not going to last forever. And it just helps you like be grounded in the moment, and also not beat yourself up when you're no longer writing that 10. You're back down to like normal life and doing all the things that entails.
That's great. Yeah, I think I once read the story behind that phrase was like, you know, a wise king asked his wise man to tell him, you know, come up with a phrase, something that's always true. You know, that no matter what, it's always true. And he came up with, this too shall pass.
Right.
And it's very true. And yeah, it's a really handy thing. I like that one.
Or death and taxes. I guess that's always true.
Yeah.
But this one, I like this too shall pass because it's great to apply to your creative process, especially when you get up and you work and you're like, okay, this is my writing block, and you sit down and you don't have the words, you don't have a productive session, or you don't, you're getting frustrated by something on the page, and you go, well, this will pass. Tomorrow will be is another day. It's another chance to get at this. Or sometimes when I make a mistake, that's what I found. It's like I will pour weeks into a scene or an outline or a story. In fact, just yesterday, I just went back and redid everything. I was writing one story and I was like, what if I flip this? Like, and the antagonist becomes the protagonist becomes the antagonist.
Oh, wow.
And we're doing this story in a different setting, and it works. But like, I had to give myself that freedom. And so that little saying of like, this too shall pass, like, yeah, it's not working. That's okay. You can try again tomorrow.
None of this matters that much. So... And I think that positive talk is something that's really helpful as well. That's something I've learned a little bit more about this year, is to encourage myself, to reward myself, to just absolutely allow no punishments, no recriminations, no beating myself up, no tough talk, which is often sometimes it happens. Especially I'm hearing about this. This is apparently pretty common for people with ADD, because you get very frustrated with yourself. Like you want to do a thing and your brain's like, nah. And that you can get really mad and you feel like, oh, go. You feel like, why can't I do this? Everyone else can. And you can get very angry and go to that negative place. But that's ultimately defeating. So I've been trying really hard to be more positive to myself, and to with my positive self-talk, and how am I doing this, and thinking more things. One great image that came to me from a book that I read, and I think it was from Writing in Flow, by Susan Perry, and someone was saying that they like to think when they're writing that their story is waiting for them at the end, and it's a good thing to remember. Like, yeah, no, your story's, you're gonna get it. The story's waiting for you on the end. You just got to get to it. It will happen, because it's happened so many times where I've been writing and I'm like, oh my god, I'll never figure this out, and then I do, right? Yeah. I figure it out eventually, and then I'm like, oh, see, I thought at this day. Thursday, I was so sure that it was a disaster. And then on Tuesday, I worked it out. Like, why was I so freaked out on Thursday? Because I got it. And why don't I remember that happens before? Because there have been lots of Thursdays where I've been sure. Like, and lots of Tuesdays. So, yeah, I think positive self-talk, encouragement, a more self-nurturing sort of attitude, I think has been a real big change for me. And I like it a lot.
I love that. Yeah, I've definitely taken that into sort of my process, and using affirmations, really trying to ground myself and just be more compassionate, be nicer to myself.
Yeah. You would never say some of these things to someone else.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, like, I would never, if I had a friend who was, a writer, like you came to me and you said, I'm having trouble, I'd be like, well, yes, because you're lazy and stupid. Would I ever say that to you? Of course not. My God.
Yep.
But I say it to myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, oh, come on.
Yeah. I think the last big thing that I learned, which is less about the writing on the page and more about my overall writing career, has been around taking chances, even if you think they won't, like, even if you think they're small or insignificant or not likely to happen. Because the two biggest things that I think have been influential on me in TV writing were like getting into this Writers Guild program, which I almost didn't apply to, and working as an assistant now with a TV writer. And I almost didn't do that because I had just taken a full-time job at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's like, because I asked the question and I said, well, like, how many hours do you need? And what would the schedule be like? And is there some flexibility? Like, I was able to get that job, and that job has provided me with a lot of additional insight and access and exposure to people in the industry that I just wouldn't have had. Right? If I didn't have the courage or think like, I know this seems completely impossible, but let me just throw that out there anyway and see what happens.
That's fantastic. And yeah, I like that also that you asked for what you wanted, you asking the questions. You don't get something if you don't ask for it. I think that's important to do. That's great.
Yeah, because it would have been on her to be like, oh, like it's not her responsibility to try and convince me to do this. And like she wouldn't even have known. But for me to say like, well, it's worth a shot. Like she could just say no. And I'm still in the same place I was at the beginning. So
yeah, they're not gonna shoot you dead for asking. Like, what the hell? They're not gonna think any worse of you.
Right, exactly.
It's fine. Yeah, that's good. Well, awesome. Well, I'm really looking forward to 2022. With if we can hopefully keep up these healthy changes that we've made, and have a really great writing year this year. I hope. That's all we can do. All right. Well, I guess we'll wrap up here and just remind you all that writing is hard.
So take it easy.
I'm Mary.
And I'm Melissa.
Bye, guys.
Bye.